The Swiss National Bank, or SNB, is the central bank of Switzerland. For over a century, it has been setting the country's monetary policy.
Central banks operate at the crossroads of economics and politics. So it's no coincidence that the SNB has two head offices. One in Zurich, Switzerland's economic and financial centre, the other in Bern, the federal capital.
The Bern head office may be located right next door to the Federal Parliament building, but the SNB enjoys a high degree of independence. This independence, guaranteed by law, protects the bank from political influence. Thus, when it comes to monetary policy, the SNB may not accept any instructions from external sources.
In return, it is required to provide the Swiss Parliament with regular reports on its activities. The SNB's governing board is responsible for making the monetary policy decisions and representing the bank. Its 3 members are appointed by the Federal Council.
We come into contact with the SNB every day. Its name is printed on every Swiss banknote.
It is the SNB, and only the SNB, that issues Swiss franc banknotes.
The SNB is required by law to ensure price stability. Prices should neither keep rising nor keep falling. In other words, there should be neither inflation nor deflation. The Swiss franc thus retains its purchasing power, and we can continue to have confidence in the value of our money.
Stable money is by no means something to be taken for granted. Most countries have, in the past, seen episodes of sharply rising prices. In some instances, inflation spiraled out of control. Millions of people lost their savings, with devastating consequences for the economy and for society.
Episodes of drastically falling prices are less common, but the effect can be just as damaging. A stark reminder is the Great Depression in the 1930s, when severe global deflation caused production to collapse, leading to mass unemployment.
How does the SNB ensure price stability? It influences interest rates, which in turn affect how much money and credit are available in the economy. An important foundation of the governing board's monetary policy decisions is the quarterly monetary policy assessment, which takes place in March, June, September and December.
In the first round of the assessment process, experts from across the bank meet with the governing board for a question and answer session.
Ich begrüße Sie ganz herzlich zu unserer Lagebeurteilung. Wir müssen uns heute die wichtigen Fragen stellen. Geldpolitik, wie Sie wissen, ist nicht einfacher geworden.
The meetings take a close look at the entire Swiss economy. The governing board wants to know how the experts see production, employment and prices developing.
And because Switzerland is so closely interconnected with the rest of the world, the international economic situation is also discussed in detail. In addition, the path of interest rates, exchange rates, and monetary and credit aggregates are analysed.
Forecasts play an important role in the process. They facilitate forward thinking. This is key, given that it takes time for monetary policy to affect economic performance and prices.
When the first round of the assessment has been completed, the governing board withdraws to deliberate. With a smaller circle of key advisors, it explores the options and makes its monetary policy decision. Specifically, it debates whether monetary policy should be tightened, relaxed, or left unchanged.
If the economy is performing well and there is no threat to price stability, the SNB leaves its monetary policy unchanged.
If, however, the economy is overheating and there is a danger of rising inflation, it tightens its policy. Loans become more expensive and economic momentum slows down. Inflation is kept under control.
If, on the other hand, economic conditions are about to deteriorate and inflation is set to fall, the SNB relaxes its monetary policy. Loans become cheaper and the demand for goods and services picks up.
So how exactly does the SNB tighten or relax monetary policy? Like most central banks, it does so with bank liquidity. In other words, the money that the banks have on their accounts at the SNB. Banks need this liquidity to carry out their payment transactions and to meet the requirements on the minimum reserves they must hold.
The SNB has a number of options at hand. If it wants to relax monetary policy, it can, for instance, make more liquidity available to the banks. Liquidity becomes cheaper and interest rates fall.
If it wants to tighten monetary policy, it can reduce bank liquidity. This causes interest rates to rise.
The banks themselves use the funds provided by the SNB to grant loans to other banks or to households and companies. In this way, liquidity gets distributed across the entire banking system, thereby influencing the economy as a whole.
In normal times, it is sufficient for the SNB to steer interest rates. But there have also been difficult times when exceptional measures became necessary.
One such occasion was the international financial and debt crisis, which erupted in the summer of 2007. It all started when the interbank market for liquidity came to a standstill. To avoid a total collapse of the financial system, central banks flooded the banking system with liquidity.
But the problems didn't stop there. 1 year later, the crisis escalated. Banks around the globe began to flounder as the value of their investments dropped dramatically. Central banks took steps to stabilize the banking system.
The banking crisis also left its mark on Switzerland. The biggest bank in the country found itself dangerously weakened. To protect the financial system, the Swiss Confederation, the Financial Market Supervisor, and the Swiss National Bank agreed on a package of measures. By means of a stabilization fund, the SNB granted the floundering bank emergency liquidity assistance in the form of a multi-billion franc loan.
Un système financier stable est indispensable au développement de notre économie et au fonctionnement ordonné de notre système monétaire. Et c'est pourquoi nous avons décidé d'attribuer ce crédit de 54 milliards de dollars au maximum, un montant très inhabituel pour la Banque nationale suisse.
A case such as this must not be repeated. The SNB has since been active at both national and international level, advocating that big banks increase their capital base and take steps to improve crisis prevention.
Not long after having stabilized the banking system, the SNB once again found itself confronted with a situation that called for exceptional measures.
This time, financial markets were becoming increasingly concerned about the soundness of public finances in a number of countries.
As in past episodes of considerable uncertainty, the Swiss franc became highly sought after. it appreciated sharply and reached record levels against the euro and the US dollar. The dramatic appreciation of the franc threatened to seriously damage the Swiss economy.
It was in this critical situation that the SNB decided to purchase large amounts of foreign currency in an attempt to slow the appreciation. In September 2011, it even introduced a temporary minimum exchange rate against the euro.
Sie toleriert ab sofort keinen Euro-Frankenkurs unter 1,20.
With the exchange rate floor, the SNB halted the appreciation of the Swiss franc. The minimum exchange rate remained in place for over 3 years. During this time, the Swiss economy picked up again and confidence in the US dollar was restored.
Towards the end of 2014, however, it was becoming increasingly clear that the euro was about to weaken substantially against all other major currencies, and that the minimum exchange rate could only be enforced through continued large purchases of foreign currency. In light of this situation, the SNB discontinued the minimum exchange rate against the euro in January 2015.
Monetary policy must be communicated in a clear and precise manner in order for it to achieve the desired effect. At the SNB, communication focuses on the monetary policy decisions taken by the governing board. Following the quarterly monetary policy assessment, these decisions are communicated via a range of media.
Preparations for this communication are handled with the utmost discretion. With little time to spare, the finishing touches are put to the different language versions of the texts.
Merci Rita, au revoir.
Ah voilà, c'est arrivé. Là.
Formulations are examined and re-examined, each word carefully weighed.
Okay, right. Thanks then. Among the leaders, does that work?
Twice a year, the monetary policy assessment is followed by a news conference. The governing board invites national and international media representatives to the event. It explains the monetary policy decision and presents the inflation forecast in the context of both the Swiss and the global economic outlook.
Meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren, ich begrüße Sie ganz herzlich zu unserer Medienkonferenz.
An den Finanzmärkten ist die Volatilität leicht angestiegen. Zudem ging der Risikoappetit der Anleger zeitweilig zurück.
Les conditions sont les mêmes pour tous, mais les effets peuvent varier selon les banques et les intervenants sur les marchés en fonction de leur bilan.
Ja, bitte.
Ich würde Ihre Einschätzung hören zur
The press conference also gives the governing board the opportunity to speak directly with the journalists and to respond to their questions.
Since the bank's establishment over a century ago, the SNB has been responsible for Switzerland's monetary policy. Time and again, it has had to adapt its policies to changing circumstances. Yet its core task has always been the same. It ensures that our money remains stable and that we can have confidence in its value. It pursues a monetary policy serving the interests of the country as a whole.